So you're looking for an older car, maybe a first car for you, maybe a first car for one of your kids. So obviously you're going to be looking at something at a most likely lower price point, and it's going to have high miles. It's going to be really used. We're in a 2004 Honda Accord vehicle that's pretty much 20 years old. We recently took it on trade. This one has 221,213 miles at the time of making this video. It's running pretty good. This is generally something that's a little bit too older for us to sell, a little bit too older and tired. We're a Highland luxury store. You can see we have a little bit more nicer cars over there. Stuff like this, generally we're going to send to the auction and sell it at the auction. We're another car dealership, you know, probably a little independent store, one of those little car dealerships you see on the side of the road and maybe operating out of like a single wide trailer. Buy here, pay here stores. That's probably most likely someone who's going to buy it and sell it on their lot. But I have a little extra time today. I'm kind of caught up on work, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to do a little video on one of our older wholesale vehicles and kind of talk about the pros and cons of buying an older vehicle, potential maintenance issues or to look for. Obviously, not everyone's made of money. Not everyone can afford to buy a car for $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. So when you're looking for a vehicle, if you need some basic transportation, something as reliable and nice as can be for under $10,000, it would be a vehicle like this. So generally, 2004 Honda Accord, depending on the condition, it could have a trade-in value of anywhere between $1,000 to $4,000 depending on the condition. And generally, when a car dealership is going to sell it on their lot, they'll probably, wholesale and retail is different. So, wholesale value is probably $1,000 to $4,000 depending on the condition. When they sell it on their lot, the retail sale value will probably be, for something like this, will probably be closer to like $3,000 to $6,000. Buy here, pay here stores are kind of popular with lower priced cars. Buy here, pay here stores are generally car dealerships that do in-house financing. So they don't really look at your credit history. They don't pull credit reports. They don't work with banks. They basically fund their own vehicles. So you buy a car from them, you come in weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, and you pay them for the vehicle, or they go out and repossess it. Generally, they'll have two keys. They have one key for them to keep, one key for you. So if you don't pay for your vehicle, it might not be there when you wake up the next morning. Or, maybe you're looking on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace and you're looking something from a private seller who's selling a vehicle like this. Sometimes that's a good way to go as well. Sometimes people, take very good care of the vehicle. Maybe you're buying it from someone who's had it since new and did every recommended service since new at Honda, and they're just ready to sell it. There are those cars out there like that, those hidden gems. This actually runs and drives pretty nice. So we'll do a little walk around on it. We'll do a little drive and see how it runs. This is actually my first time in the vehicle, just like you. It's a little bit toasty today. First thing, let's check out and see if the AC works. Yeah, right as I turn it on, the AC is blowing cold. The engine seems to be running good. My first car is actually a Honda Accord, an 88 Honda Accord. I think my dad bought it for like $1,000. He's in the car business. And it's a pretty nice car. I drove that for a few years. But you have 221,000 miles on it. This could be a car potentially nearing the end of its life. When you have a car like this and you have to do a major repair, especially at a Honda dealership, it could, $3,000 or $4,000 repair can be pretty easy these days with, $150, $180 an hour shop rates. So you could quickly, have a vehicle like this and you're going to spend what it's worth or more than it's worth to repair it. So those are things you have to think about. You kind of have to ask yourself, could I have to spend $3,000 to fix this car? Could I find a nicer car than this for $3,000, or should I spend $3,000 and maybe get another year or two out of it? Those are things to think about, But car payments are pretty expensive with interest rates in the 7-8% range right now. A car payment generally could be $400 or $500 a month for a used car. So being able to have a car without any payments, you could be saving yourself $400 or $500 a month for every month you drive a vehicle like this and don't have to make a car payment. And a vehicle like this, you don't necessarily need to have full coverage insurance because you don't have a loan on it, so you're not required to have full coverage insurance. You can just have liability, and it'll cost you a lot less. Because if you have a cheaper car like this, if it does get wrecked, destroyed, stolen, it's not going to be quite as much of a loss, you know, for a car that's worth a couple $1,000s versus a car that's worth $10,000 or $20,000. All right, so the windows all work pretty good. The interior is in actually really nice shape. No really noticeable wear on the seats at all. You know, for a car that's 20 years old and 220,000 miles, this thing is interior is in surprisingly nice shape. Likewise, the back seats are pretty good, and this is just how we took it in. We haven't cleaned it or anything like this. This is just how it came into our store. You got the wheel covers; those are easily replaceable. Little dirt on the hood, but the paint condition's really nice, and it kind of also depends on where you live. Luckily for us in the Pacific Northwest, we have a very mild climate. We actually very rarely get any snow, so there's no road salts, no corrosive materials, and we have a very modest climate. You know, usually in the winters it's 40, 50 degrees. Sometimes it gets at freezing or below freezing, and most of the time in the summertime it's 70, 80 degrees. Occasionally we get, you know, heat waves and stuff like that. So we have a climate that is very, very easy on cars. So cars actually tend to last a lot longer out here in the Pacific Northwest, in the Seattle-Tacoma area, than, for instance, you know, where I grew up in Boston, which cars are get destroyed pretty quick. You usually don't see too many old cars like this driving around the Boston area. They're usually rusted and rusted away. They've encountered too many potholes and stuff like that. But yeah, this thing's actually in great shape for 221,000 miles. If I was actually looking for a little cheap commuter car and I didn't have a lot of money, actually this thing would really be a great vehicle for me. The engine seems to run pretty good. Let's shut it off and see if there's any oil leaks. Condition the oil. Yeah. So when you look inside the engine, there's a couple things you want to look for. Rodent damage can be a pretty big deal, because when rodents chew wires, that can really complicate things. Like if you have to replace a whole wiring harness on a car like this, it can cost $3,000 or $4,000. It's actually a really big thing to replace a wiring harness on a car like this. But I don't see too much corrosion. I don't see any signs of rodents. I do see a few cobwebs. Looking around, I don't really see any noticeable oil leaks as well. Looks like it was a well cared for vehicle. The other thing you want to do is always, you know, the easy thing to do is to pull the dipstick and take a look at the condition of the oil. You know, see if there is oil in there. The oil looks fairly clean. And then you want to pull this one out too. And then you want to check for sludge. Looks pretty good. So generally when you don't change the oil in a vehicle, you can have what you call sludge buildup. Looks pretty clean in there. And it's pretty easy. Just look in there or look here and you'd have like a peanut butter like substance there, and that's oil sludge, and that's definitely a sign to stay away from a vehicle. But this thing actually looks really nice for 220,000 miles. The engine it looks really clean in there. Yeah, so far so good. It's a pretty good car. The more I look at it, I'm like, maybe we should just try getting it through the shop and maybe retail it on our lot the more I look at it. All right, let's get behind the wheel and take it for a spin and see how it drives. We haven't really, you know, obviously just starting it and walking around it looks good, but you know, we could notice some issues when we take it for a spin. I haven't driven this vehicle yet. This is my first time getting in and starting it and looking at it. I didn't happen to be the manager to appraise this one, but so far so good. So let's get behind the wheel and take it for a spin. Fires right up. All right, we're gonna take this 2004 Accord out for a spin. So a little bit about the Accord history in 2004. It's 2024, so this thing's 20 years old, believe it or not. But 2004 Honda Accord is a really nice vehicle. In 2003, the Accord actually was redesigned. So 2004 was a pretty fresh new design in the Accord, only about a year old when this thing was built. And going from the old body style to this new body style of Accord is actually pretty revolutionary. I've been in the car business all my life. I'm 44. I've been in the car business since I was 15 in the mid-90s. So yeah, I was in the car business. I actually worked at a Honda dealership when these first came out, and they were pretty revolutionary as far as the styling goes. It kind of has like this wedge styling, but it was definitely a big leap as far as looks the technology goes versus the older Honda Accord. At the time, the Accord and the Camry were head-to-head for some of the best-selling cars in the US. Obviously, now we all love crossover SUVs. That's what Americans love. But back in the 2000s and then the 90s, America loved sedans. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the RAV4 and the Honda CR-V probably outsell the Camry and Accord at this point. They still sell fairly well, but back in the day, this was the cash cow for Honda. This was their #1 selling vehicle. It was one of the #1 selling vehicles in the US, so every year it kind of switch off between the Camry and Accord. Car and Driver, one of my favorite automotive publications, they seem to always have the Honda Accord on the annual top 10 best list. I think it's been that case for about 30 or 40 years. I think recently in 2024, when their annual 10 best list came out, the Accord was on it. And I'm pretty sure back in 2004, when they had their annual top 10 best list, the Accord was certainly on it. So far, so good. This thing drives really nice. Everything seems to work. We'll take it on the highway. We take it through some corners. So obviously, when you're test driving an older car like this, you want to listen for rattles and noises, loose steering. So sometimes a common issue on a front drive vehicle like this, the front axles can go bad, so you want to make sure that there's no clicking noises, so you can do some hard, just cut the wheel all the way and turn it, and you'll hear clicking noises. When you do sharp corners, that means that you might need to replace the CV joints or the half shafts. Not a big deal to do. Any repair shop should be able to do that fairly easily on a vehicle like this. Not too expensive. I wouldn't, not buy a vehicle because of that, but it's something that you're going to have to likely address if you own one. See how the transmission shifts. Check out the power. So back in 2004, there were 2 engines available on the Accord. You could get a 2.4 liter 4-cylinder, which this one has, making 160 horsepower. It's actually a good amount of power for a vehicle like this. Back then, 160 horsepower is really good. Enough, you're not going to win any races, but enough to get it out of its own way. Or there was an optional 3-liter V6 pumping out 240 horsepower. It was actually pretty revolutionary. 240 horsepower in the Accord, that's a lot of power. The Accord, the V6 Accord was like a little sleeper, sport coupe or sedan. You could either get in a coupe or sedan. Now they just have sedans for the Accords now. The coupe has disappeared. But yeah, I mean, that was a rocket ship. From a reliability standpoint, I'd probably say that the 4-cylinder might be a little bit more reliable, a little bit cheaper to repair and stuff. All right, let's check out the acceleration. Flooring the accelerator. Transmission shifted pretty good. And then we're up to 60 miles an hour. Like I said, you're not going to win any races, but the engine runs great. I don't see any smoke or anything like that. The steering might be a teeny bit loose, but not too bad. Things are going to loosen up over 200,000 miles, but this thing feels pretty solid. The steering slightly, the wheel's slightly crooked, so it might be, ready for an alignment, but it tracks pretty straight down the highway. The downshifts really well. You got good power for passing and merging on the highway. Really fuel efficient. You're going to probably get anywhere between, they probably average in the high 20s, low 30s as far as gas mileage goes. It's really quiet too. The interior is super quiet on the highway. See how it goes around corners. Sometimes the shocks and struts can go bad and you can have a little bit more body roll, but it doesn't feel too bad. This thing's pretty tight. I'm impressed. The more I drive it, I'm like, wow, this would be a great little commuter vehicle, but I don't need any more cars. But man, if I was in the market for an inexpensive car, I didn't want a car payment, I would be all over this thing. And actually, the more I drive it, I'm thinking, well, maybe we should sell it at the auction. Maybe we should keep it and sell it as a little price range vehicle in our lot. Generally, you know, when the managers, you know, look at cars, they see 220,000 miles. Oh yeah, this thing's gonna have way too many problems. We're just gonna send it to the auction. But actually, getting in this one and driving it, it's pretty nice. This might be a good little vehicle for us to keep and sell on our lot. So maybe you might see it pop up on our website for sale, or maybe not. We still have to put it through the shop. You know, there could be some oil leaks or some other red flags that come up, but honestly, just me driving it and looking at it, it seems pretty solid to me. You know, I'm not a mechanic. I'm a used car manager, so I know, you know, after years of driving cars, you can see patterns. So, you know, obviously, when we have someone who wants to trade in a vehicle, we don't have time to put it up in the air, put it through the shop, have a mechanic inspect it. Someone like me, or one of the other managers, is going to have to take it for a little drive and just you know, take a look at it and, you know, see if there's any major issues and cross your fingers. Sometimes there's stuff that it turns out, you know, we didn't catch when we first appraised it, and, you know, we have to send it to the auction, or it's going to cost a lot more than originally thought to recondition it and repair it to get it you know, properly for sale on our lot. But this thing's great. I would say this is probably the exception to the rule. Probably 90 to 95% of the vehicles that we take in on trade with 221,000 miles, they're pretty much got 3 tires in the grave. They're ready to go to the junkyard, the scrap heap. You know, maybe someone could eke out a few more thousands of miles of life out of it, maybe another year. But usually they're pretty well worn and driven, and and not too many people would want to own that car. But this thing I think's got a lot of life left in it. I think this could last definitely more than a couple of years. I think it's definitely possible with a caring owner that this thing could easily go another 100,000 miles. It's not uncommon to see some of these Accords with 300, maybe even a couple of 400,000 miles on them. Not uncommon at all. And you know, some cars are different. Some cars just have issues, and some cars are just have a reputation for rock solid reliability. And obviously the Accord is a little bit more towards the rock solid reliability. You know, Honda and Toyota are probably considered by many to be some of the most reliable car brands out there, for good reason. And you know, generally when people are buying older used cars, this is probably going to sell command a little bit more money on the used car market versus like a, you know, used Buick or like a Ford or something like that. Just because these have a reputation for going a long time, and this is a great example. You know, if you take care of your vehicle, you do the recommended maintenance, you don't beat on it. I mean, a lot of cars can last a long time. You can get a lot of life out of cars. Just because a car has 100,000 miles on it or 150,000 miles on it doesn't mean that, you know, it's anywhere near the end of its life expectancy and you have to trade it in and get a new car. This is a good example of a car that has 221,000 miles on it, but it's still in great working order. You know, if I had my kids are 4 and 7, so luckily it'll be quite a while before I have to, you know, think about getting them a car. But like me, when my dad bought me my first Honda Accord, that 88 Honda Accord, you know, I had visions of Mustangs and Camaros and Ford Taurus SHOs, and I was a little bit disappointed to get a Honda Accord. But, you know, it didn't take long. He brought it home, I got behind the wheel and drove it, and I was happy. It was a great first car. And you know, it's always the case, you know, when your kid gets their first car, it's going to get beaten, it's probably going to get crashed. It's a learning car, so you probably don't want to get a car that's really nice for your kid, and maybe if you're super rich. But the first car is probably going to get that's the car for learning. It's going to get some bumps and bruises, maybe even worse, unfortunately. So a car like this would be a great first car. Obviously it's nice, but you know, if it gets crashed, gets damaged, it's not going to be the end of the world. Well, a little bit different style video this time, but I think it was kind of fun to change things up. Instead of like doing videos of newer cars, it would be a little bit fun to take a look at some of the older stuff that you normally don't see on our lot because we send it to the auction. And I don't know what the case is going to be for this one. It could go to the auction. We could decide to keep it. It looks like the glove compartment's broken. I didn't see that. That should be a big deal. You could probably get a new one at a salvage yard. It still works. You can just pull that little wire right there. Looks like they had a temporary solution. But yeah, maybe you could even replace that part, not the whole glove box cover, but that's not a big deal either. That's nothing. All right, well, thanks for watching. Hope to see you soon and have a wonderful day.